Kimi Raikkonen. Most drivers live and breathe racing. They obsess over data, study every corner, and lose sleep thinking about setup changes. Kimi Raikkonen didn't care about any of that. He showed up, drove faster than almost everyone, and left. No politics, no media games, no pretending to care about sponsors. Just pure speed wrapped in complete indifference. What made Kimi's skill set weird wasn't just his personality. It was how that personality translated into driving style. He had zero emotional attachment to the outcome. Most drivers get nervous, overthink, or crack under pressure. Kimi didn't feel pressure. He'd be leading a championship fight and show the same facial expression as someone waiting for a bus. That detachment made him incredibly fast in specific situations. When the car was right, when the setup suited him, Kimi was untouchable. His 2003 and 2005 seasons with McLaren showed raw speed that few could match. He lost both championships by tiny margins, not because he wasn't fast enough, but because the cars kept breaking. Then came 2007 with Ferrari. Kimi won the championship in his first year with the team, beating both McLaren drivers on the final day of the season. He did it without any of the drama, team politics, or media narrative that usually surrounds a title fight. He just drove. But here's where the weirdness really showed. Kimi's motivation came and went like weather. Some seasons, he looked like the fastest driver on the grid. Other seasons, he looked completely disinterested. He took 2 years off from F1, went rallying because he felt like it, then came back and won races again. In 2012 and 2013 with Lotus, he was consistently on the podium despite the team being broke and paying him an IOS. His feedback to engineers was famously minimal, while other drivers would give detailed reports about understeer, oversteer, and balance. Kimi would say the car was loose or tight and leave it at that. Yet somehow, his raw feel for the car was so good that engineers could still extract what they needed. The skill set was pure instinct with zero overthinking. Kimi never studied his competitors. He didn't watch their onboards or analyze their techniques. He just drove his own race in his own way, and if the car was fast enough, he'd win. If it wasn't, he'd finish wherever and not lose sleep over it. What made this approach weird in F1 is that the sport rewards obsession. The drivers who live and breathe racing, who optimize every detail, usually win. But Kimi proved you could reach the absolute top level through pure natural talent and complete emotional detachment. He retired in 2021 as the most experienced F1 driver ever with 349 race starts, 1 world championship, 21 race wins, and a reputation as the driver who cared the least, but somehow still made it work. Sergio Perez. He has one of the strangest skill combinations in modern F1. On race day, especially when tire management matters, he's phenomenal. In qualifying, he struggles to extract that one perfect lap. It's like watching 2 different drivers. Perez's tire management is legitimately world-class. He can make a set of tires last longer than almost anyone while maintaining competitive pace. Sakir 2020 showed this perfectly. He started last after a first-lap incident, worked his way through the field, and nearly won the race on a one-stop strategy, while everyone else pitted twice. His ability to feel when tires are about to fall off the cliff and adjust his driving style accordingly is exceptional. In Monaco 2022, he won by managing his tires perfectly, while Charles Leclerc's strategy fell apart. Multiple times throughout his career, Perez has pulled off unlikely podiums by stretching tire life beyond what seemed possible. But then, qualifying happens, and it's a completely different story. Throughout his time at Red Bull alongside Verstappen, the gap has often been massive. Verstappen would be on pole or P2, and Perez would be starting P5 or P6. Same car, same setup options, completely different results. The weird part is that Perez's race pace is genuinely strong. He can keep up with the leaders once the race starts and the tire management phase begins. But that single flying lap in qualifying, where you need to extract every hundredth of a second with no room for error, that's where he loses time. His driving style is smooth, measured, and focused on consistency. Perfect for race day, not ideal for one lap pace. In street circuits, Perez is particularly strong. Baku, Singapore, Monaco, tracks where precision and tire management matter more than raw pace. He excels. Put him on a high-speed circuit with long corners where you need maximum commitment, and the gap to his teammate grows. Red Bull kept him for years despite the qualifying deficit because his race day skills are valuable. valuable. He's there to support Verstappen, collect podiums, and score constructor points. And he does that job well. But it's still strange to see a driver at this level with such a pronounced split between Saturday and Sunday performance. Most top drivers are either fast everywhere or not fast enough to be an F1. Perez is fast in one very specific way that's incredibly useful, but doesn't translate to the full skill spectrum you'd expect from a race winner. Nico Hulkenberg. He has one of the most bizarre records in F1 history. He competed in 181 races without ever standing on a podium. Not once. And yet, he was fast enough to stay in F1 for over a decade and get multiple comeback opportunities. The weirdness is in the details. Hulkenberg was exceptional in qualifying. He took pole position at Brazil 2010 in a Williams, beating drivers in much faster cars. Throughout his career, his Saturday pace was consistently strong. He'd regularly out-qualify teammates and put midfield cars into positions where points were guaranteed. Then, race day would happen, and something always went wrong. Mechanical failures, strategy mistakes, bad luck, or just being in cars that weren't quite fast enough to hold position. His closest podium chance came at Brazil 2012. He was running fourth in the rain, on track for his first podium, when he crashed with just a few laps remaining. It wasn't a small mistake. It was a racing incident. But the timing was cruel. That became the pattern. Chances would appear, and circumstances would take them away. What made Hulkenberg's skill set weird was the gap between his qualifying pace and his race results. Most drivers who qualify well also race well and eventually luck into podiums through attrition or strategy. Hulkenberg had the pace, but never had the convergence of car performance, reliability, and luck needed to break through. Teams kept hiring him because the speed was undeniable. He was a safe pair of hands, consistent, fast in qualifying, and good for points. But he never got the call from a top team when seats opened up. Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes all looked elsewhere when they needed drivers. His career became defined by the podium stat. Every race without one added to the narrative. By the end, it became almost mythical. The driver who was good enough to stay in F1 for years, but never quite good enough or lucky enough to finish top 3 even once. When he returned to F1 in 2022 with Haas after 2 years away, people wondered if he'd finally break the curse. He didn't. Strong qualifying performances, solid race pace, but no podium. The skill set remained the same. Fast on Saturday, consistent on Sunday, never quite in position to capitalize when opportunities emerged. Pastor Maldonado, he is remembered for crashes, penalties, and causing mayhem wherever he raced. But buried in that chaos is one of the strangest facts in modern F1. He won a race. And not through luck or attrition, he won by being genuinely fast. Spain 2012. Maldonado took pole position, led the race, held off Fernando Alonso in a Ferrari on Alonso's home circuit, and won. It was a dominant, controlled performance that showed genuine speed. Then he went back to crashing into people and never came close to winning again. The weirdness of Maldonado's skill set was the inconsistency. On his day, when everything clicked, he had pace that could match race winners. His qualifying speed was legitimate. He'd put the Williams on the front rows and show flashes of brilliance. Then, the next weekend, he'd crash in practice, take someone out in the race, and collect another penalty. It wasn't a lack of talent. Drivers don't reach F1 without serious speed. Maldonado had won the GP2 championship in 2010, beating the entire field. He had the raw pace. What he didn't have was consistency, racecraft, or the ability to manage risk. His aggressive style worked in junior categories, where everyone was learning. In F1, where the margins are tiny and the consequences are huge, that style caused constant problems. He took out other drivers regularly. Perez, Hamilton, Gutierrez, Chilton, the list of drivers he'd crashed into or spun out grew every season. The penalties accumulated, the reputation solidified. What made this weird is that teams kept giving him chances because of the underlying speed. Williams kept him for 3 years. Lotus signed him for 2014 and 2015. The talent was visible enough that teams thought they could refine it, smooth out the aggression, and unlock consistent performance. It never happened. Maldonado's career ended after 2015 when his sponsorship money dried up and no team wanted to take the risk anymore. He finished his F1 career with 1 win, 1 pole position, and a reputation as one of the most unpredictable drivers the sport had seen. The skill set was there. The application was chaos. Romain Grosjean, his F1 career was a constant battle between genuine pace and baffling mistakes. He'd set the fastest lap one weekend and cause a multi-car pileup the next. The duality defined his entire time in the sport. Grosjean came into F1 with strong credentials. He'd won the GP2 championship and showed impressive speed in testing, but his first stint with Renault in 2009 was a disaster. He was dropped mid-season after a series of crashes and poor performances. Most drivers don't recover from that. Grosjean did. He rebuilt his reputation in GP2, came back to F1 with Lotus in 2012, and immediately showed the speed that got him there in the first place. He scored podiums, ran at the front in a competitive Lotus, and looked like a future star. Then, Belgium 2012 happened. Grosjean caused a massive first-lap crash that took out Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. He was banned for one race. The mistakes kept coming. Throughout 2012 and 2013, Grosjean was fast, but error-prone. He'd qualify brilliantly, then crash out of races through his own mistakes. The pattern continued when he moved to Haas in 2016. Strong qualifying pace, occasional brilliant race performances, but also frustrating crashes and mistakes under pressure. His podiums were legitimate. Spa 2015, he finished third in a Lotus that had no business being there. His speed in qualifying was consistently strong, but the errors never fully disappeared. What made Grosjean's skill set weird was that the mistakes weren't from lack of talent. They were mental, pressure situations, first laps, tight racing. These scenarios brought out errors that his raw pace suggested shouldn't exist. In clean air with a clear track, Grosjean was genuinely quick. In traffic, the risk calculation seemed off. His Bahrain 2020 crash, where his car split in half and burst into flames, became the defining image of his career. He survived because of the halo and his own quick reactions, climbing out of the fireball with burns but alive. It was horrifying, miraculous, and somehow fitting for a career defined by extremes. Grosjean left F1 after 2020 and moved to IndyCar, where he's been fast, consistent, and largely crash-free. The change of environment seemed to unlock the speed without the errors, but his F1 career remains one of the sport's strangest contradictions. Genuinely fast, occasionally brilliant, but never quite able to eliminate the mistakes that held him back. Kamui Kobayashi. He had one exceptional skill that made him a fan favorite and a nightmare for other drivers. He could overtake anywhere, anytime, from any angle. His commitment level in wheel-to-wheel racing was borderline reckless, and somehow it worked more often than it should have. Kobayashi's breakthrough moment came at Brazil 2009. He replaced Timo Glock at Toyota for the final two races and immediately showed aggressive overtaking that fans hadn't seen in years. He was diving up the inside from impossible distances, making moves that looked like they'd end in crashes but somehow stuck. When Toyota left F1, Sauber signed him. From 2010 to 2012, Kobayashi became known as one of the most entertaining drivers on the grid. Not because he was fighting for wins, but because he'd attempt overtakes that made no logical sense. His racecraft was built on commitment. He'd brake later than physics suggested was possible, throw the car into corners, and trust that either he'd make it or the other driver would back out. Most of the time, they backed out. Japan 2012 was peak Kobayashi. Starting 11th, he charged through the field and finished third, taking his first and only F1 podium. The overtakes that race were spectacular. Late braking, aggressive positioning, zero fear. But the weird part of Kobayashi's skill set was that it only worked in races. His qualifying pace was average. His consistency was patchy. Put him in clean air, and he was just okay. Put him in traffic with cars to pass, and suddenly he came alive. The problem with that skill set in modern F1 is that overtaking opportunities are limited. On tracks where DRS and strategy create chances, Kobayashi thrived. On circuits where track position is everything, he struggled. His aggression also led to incidents. He'd misjudge braking points, make contact, or crash trying moves that were too ambitious. The risk-reward calculation was different for him than other drivers. After 2012, his career declined. Caterham for 2014 was a disaster in an uncompetitive car. He left F1 and found success in endurance racing, winning Le Mans in 2019 and 2020 with Toyota. The longer races and different racing dynamics suited his style better. Kobayashi's F1 career was short but memorable. He proved that pure entertainment value and aggressive racecraft could make a driver beloved even without championships or regular podiums. The overtaking kamikaze who'd try anything once and make it work just enough to keep fans on the edge of their seats.